Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. I'm delighted to welcome Conor Hanick this morning. Let me tell you what the New York Times said. Pianist Conor Hanick is regarded as one of his generation's most inquisitive interpreters of music, new and old, whose technical refinement, color, crispness, and wondrous variety of articulation benefit works by any master. That's pretty impressive. Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing great. It's such a joy to join you this morning.
It is lovely. We take a lot of music to turn over because we transition from the first hour to the second hour, and it's live, so we have to do all these things.
Yeah, do away. All good.
How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, it's like classic Monday morning in my house, getting my 5-year-old off to school and feeding my dogs and cleaning the house and then doing an interview about a German minimalist composer for a radio station. So yeah, classic Monday.
I love it. Now, where do you live?
I live it's Westchester. It's a little river town up on the Hudson River called Hastings on Hudson.
Oh, I know. Yes. It's pretty up there.
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, I'm a long-time New Yorker. I lived in Brooklyn, mostly in Bushwick for like 12 years, and then was in graduate school on the Upper West Side before that. So, yeah, it's a nice change. I mean, we have like a yard, and like the dogs can run around. More space. Good. You know how it is. So
yes. So tell me about your musical life. How old were you when you first started to play the piano? And was the piano your first instrument?
Yeah, I think technically it was my first instrument, but I only played for about a year because I grew very attached to my piano teacher at the time. I was probably 5, and she got a job in a different school district, and I basically said, well, if I can't study with her, in my 5-year-old way, if I can't study with her, then I don't want to study at all. So I had a year, and my parents tell me kind of in retrospect that she kind of knew that there was something going on with me, that I kind of had an affinity for the instrument. But I didn't start back up until I was 10, and it had been in the middle. I started playing violin just through my elementary school in Iowa, where I grew up, and I played violin all the way through college and loved the violin. I think if I could play the violin as well as I played the piano, I would be a violinist, but I don't. I was not a very good violinist, and nor was I very studious. But yeah,
the fact that you play is impressive. I mean, I'm taking violin lessons now.
It's hard, right?
Age. Yeah, but I love it though, because I'm never going to be on the Carnegie Hall, so I don't.
You never know.
So violin first, then the piano. So you come back to the piano.
Yeah.
And did you know that it was classical music that was going to? I mean, you could be Billy Joel. You know what I mean? Like you could have gone in a whole bunch of different directions. What was it about classical music that won you?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and one that I have thought about more as I've gotten older, actually, of just like what were the guardrails that kind of led me to doing the type of work that I'm doing. And I tend now in my life to do a lot of different types of music. I mean, I played chamber music and concertos and recitals, but it's the type of music I play also is pretty varied. I mean, it's not straight up Billy Joel, but I do play music that requires improvisation and it is stylistically kind of all over the place. And I think to me that it was an indicator that I could have gone in a lot of different directions when I was younger. And it happened to be that classical music was kind of where I was guided. Partly I was interested in it and remain interested in it. And that was just kind of the education that was that was available in musical kind of instrumental study, and so it just kind of happened to be that way. I grew up in Iowa City, and there's a very robust, remains a robust kind of classical music culture there, and I went to a lot of classical concerts when I was a kid, and saw a lot of orchestras and a lot of like really big time people would come through as kind of like run out shows. If they were like playing with the Chicago Symphony or something like that, they would come to Iowa and like play a recital. But I mean, I heard some really incredible people when I was a kid, and it was kind of in my mind. I don't know. And I think the very like honest truth of it too is that I was never a very good improviser, and so it may have just been a natural selection thing too. It's like I could do this one thing pretty well, but like never really showed an aptitude for playing jazz particularly well, or sort of like chord charts and
I was going to ask you if you play jazz, because I talk to a lot of musicians and a lot of artists,
Yeah.
and all of them have some, particularly the classical ones. They've got some foundational awareness around jazz. Like jazz was the thing that they started to build and develop, and then moved over to classical music.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that a lot, and with me, it was the opposite. I didn't have a great foundation in improvisation until way later, like when I was in college, and now just kind of by the chance of the composers that I've worked with and the type of music that I've become interested in, a lot of music being written now incorporates kind of improvisational elements into the language, which is a whole other thing. But I feel like I'm being asked more and more to improvise, but not only that, but to kind of have a command of how to improvise, which for people that don't have a background in it is a little bit of a harrowing task. But yeah, I mean, I love jazz and I love listening to jazz, and it's freedom and kind of harmonic palette and kind of the range of expressivity is like has been very important to kind of think about in terms of my own playing and what composers who I work with, how they're kind of communicating through their music. But unfortunately, I'm just not very good at it.
Now, do you have a rigorous tour schedule, Conor? Like, I talk to musicians and I mean, you just said you have a 5-year-old, so it can't be that rigorous. But I mean, how often throughout the year? And are you a professor as well? Like, do you teach somewhere too?
Yeah, I mean, the traveling and the touring was way more rigorous before, yeah, our kid came into the world. And I mean, he was born in 2019, and then the pandemic happened too, and that was just like such a catastrophic bomb, on the industry. And I mean, I would say that it wasn't until maybe last year that like the potential of my touring life kind of regained its pre-pandemic state. But yeah, I mean, if anything, having a kid and 2 dogs and like a family and like things that you have to deal with, it's not that it has taken away the possibility of touring, but it's just made me much more focused on the types of things that are really important to do, and be more organized about where those things slot in and how they connect to other projects in my life. Just, kids are important, and like being around for me is important. So yeah, we're just kind of strategic about it, and it works for now.
How did you manage the pandemic? Because we learned a lot from the pandemic, particularly from artists. Artists really showed up for the world and streamed their artistry, and I mean, people were tuning in to Yo-Yo Ma, every day at noon, and some of the Broadway singers. I mean, people really understood or really got a sense that art was life-saving. Did you participate in anything? Was that time very creative for you, or did you just cocoon in and said, this is what it is?
Yeah, it's a little column A, little column B, I think, for me. Yeah, I agree with you that like there was a sense that well, because I think the pandemic had a way of taking the artifice of performance away. Like, you weren't seeing Yo-Yo Ma at Carnegie, you were seeing Yo-Yo Ma on your screen in the same way that you were seeing like some, motley crew of improvisers perform a show on your screen. And I don't know, there was a sort of flattening of the way that art was being received that I thought was like very beautiful and democratic. And as you're saying, I mean, it was life saving and life affirming that like all these people could offer something kind of in a similar way, and yeah, I did. I mean, oh God, how many live streams and pre-recorded shows, and God, I remember like some of the people that had engaged me to play like in 2020 and 2021 said, well, obviously we can't have a live performance, but we want to support you in these other ways. Like, how can we make it work? And sometimes it would be, let's pre-record a recital or something like that, and then we'll put it on our platform. And like the logistics of pre-recording a recital when like all of New York City was shut down and getting like special permission to go to like Steinway Hall or Yamaha or something and have one person there who's socially distanced who has to record you, and then like getting the materials. I mean, it was a lot. And also just a testament to the importance of continuing that sort of thing and how meaningful it was for people to hear it and experience art when, we were all just kind of on our computers and our screens. But yeah, it was a rough, rough time. What about you? Did you hole up, or did you just?
I did. I did. I did all right. We shut down the studio, and then we went to this medium. Because I mean, it's live, but I'm not in the studio. I never went back to the studio after the pandemic. It's still with us, but not in the way that it was in those early days. Because I find this way more user friendly for guests. They could be anywhere instead of trying to get to the studio per se.
Yeah, sure.
So it's nice. I actually like this medium. So
yeah, there were good things that came out of it. I think like the working from home thing and realizing, oh wait, I can be productive in like these other ways. That's very useful for people.
Yeah. So all right, so you're going to be at the Schwartzman on the 26th and the 27th. So what are you going to do? What's the itinerary for you?
The itinerary. Well, the itinerary is to play this kind of wild piece for piano called The Book of Sounds, which is quite a title, and it's by a composer who probably people who are very versed in classical music probably don't know. His name is Hans Otte, and he was born in Germany and lived in Germany. He actually, I read, I don't know if I can officially confirm this, but he studied at Yale for a hot second. But yeah, he was kind of like a capital A artist rather than like a composer. He wrote a lot of music, but he also did video installations and big art installations and soundscapes. He had a very, very popular radio program actually in Bremen, Germany, that shined a light on a lot of new music that like hadn't been heard in Germany yet, bringing a lot of stuff over from America. This is all like post World War II as well, so there was again kind of like a flattening of what was available in Europe and in the United States. So he was a very interesting, multifaceted, curious person. He also played piano. He studied with Walter Gieseking, one of the like great sort of impressionistic post-war pianists. And he wrote this incredible hour and 10-minute long piece called The Book of Sounds, which is drawing on American minimalism, kind of like the Philip Glass, Steve Reich music of like the 70s, the really early stuff that's like the hard-lined minimal music. But he's also referencing John Cage and kind of the spirituality of Zen Buddhism and what it means to kind of experience sound on sounds terms, if you can put it in a weird way like that. But I think a lot of composers in that post-war period were trying to figure out ways of rediscovering what it meant to organize sound in composition. And in this piece, I mean, he had over 400 pages of little notes where he would just play a chord on a piano and say, oh, okay, that's speaking to me in this particular way. And he whittled all of this down and created this 12 movement cycle, and each movement is exploring basically a sonority or like a chord or a series of chords on the piano in a way that is meant to kind of allow the pianist, me, and the listener to kind of rediscover what it means to hear sound now and in a space. So yeah, it's a weird way of describing a piece. It's a piece that requires as much interactivity with the listener as it does for me as a pianist to kind of open those channels up. But there really is no other piece that I can think of that is more just unabashedly beautiful and is interested in making sounds that are beautiful. And resonant and glowing and exploring the ways in which a chord can kind of transform in one's own ear and one's own mind, and create this big structure. So it's a very special piece to play, and it's a very special piece to listen to. And I'm very grateful to Rachel Fine at the Schwartzman Center. She heard me play this piece in California a couple summers ago and was like, that's cool, let's do that. So I'm glad it's finally, all these years later, kind of coming to fruition, and it's going to be a joy to play it.
So you're here for 2 days. Is it 2 concerts, or is it a concert and you're teaching? Like, what's the...
Yep, two concerts, consecutive nights, and there will be a pre-concert talk, I guess, between David Lang, one of the composition faculty members at Yale, and someone who was also very interested in minimalism, kind of as a musical language, and is certainly a pioneer in his field and also the language of minimalism. So we'll chat a little bit, and then I'll drink some water and play the piece. And then I think after the second night, there'll be a little bit of a hang down in the well.
Oh yeah. Do you know New Haven? Have you been to Yale? Have you come over here before?
Yeah, a couple times. And I've been to a few shows at the Schwartzman, and have eaten my share of pizza. And I auditioned there when I was for a master's student as well. So had friends there, and
So you know New Haven a little bit. I mean, the fact that you know pizza, like that's the gold card right there. That's
there
the
it is.
entree.
Yeah. Do I dare ask if you have a favorite?
Well, you know what? I'm one of these weird people. I have a severe dairy allergy.
Oh, bummer.
So,
I'm sorry,
but everybody makes good pizza without cheese. Like I could say, no cheese whatsoever.
That's true.
And the sauce stands on its own, right? Because
yeah, you could do a classic Rosetta pizza, and
yes,
yeah.
But there are places that make good vegan cheese pizza now.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. So
Well,
there's a couple of places in town that are giving the Trinity a run for their money. The Moderns, the Peppies, and the Sallys
Yep.
a run for their money. So
nice. It's a whole new world.
now, do you get pizza when you come? Like when you come to New Haven, do you like, you know what? I would like to have pizza.
Oh yeah. I mean, we sometimes will drive up there just to eat pizza.
Oh, you are like that.
Yeah, I like it. I have not eaten at Modern yet. I've done the others, but that's I'm gonna try to hit that up when I'm there.
Yeah, try Modern. And Bar is a nice contender.
Yeah, I had that the last time I was there. Some of my friends had a little CD release through the Schwartzman, and I snuck away and went to the Bar. Very good.
So now, do you compose and record your own music? Do you have albums?
I have albums, but not of my own music. I don't do. I work with a lot of composers, and yeah, I'll sort of dabble a bit, but none of my music deserves to be heard by anybody. And I think I work with enough composers and have a sense of the toil and the work that is required to make something meaningful, that I think if I were to commit to it, it would just mean something entirely different for my life trajectory. So I'll let the composers compose, and I'm a very happy ambassador for their work, and find my job as kind of an interpreter to be a meaningful one too, and it makes it for like a very rich collaborative life too. Because as pianists, it can be a lonely art, but if you're working with composers and playing chamber music and kind of putting things together, it makes it really a rich and kind of beautiful existence.
Now, so you're teaching music, or you're teaching piano, or you're teaching.
Yeah, I teach at Juilliard, and I teach at the CUNY Graduate Center and at Mannes College in New York. And then
You enjoy it?
I love it. Yes. I think maybe if there's a change in my life in the next 5 to 10 years, it would be landing at like a real teaching institution, which is something I've avoided just because I've been playing a lot. But yeah, I love teaching, and the few students that I have in New York are really meaningful to me. And I also teach at a summer academy out in Santa Barbara called Music Academy of the West, where it's a small studio.
So you had me at Santa Barbara, because
oh yeah, you should come out and hang.
I know Santa Barbara. You could grow the best roses in Santa Barbara.
Yeah. Did you see the Mission Rose Garden?
No.
They have like, I don't know how many dozens of varietals.
I just know from Oprah and Barbara Streisand that they.
Yeah, if you get like within a block of Oprah's compound, there's like this security guard that just appears out of the bushes, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" Yeah, it's tough. But there, yeah, a lot of amazing people around there. A lot of great food, a lot of beautiful flowers, great beach.
Yeah, the weather is
in the summer,
perfect.
some really amazing pianists that do there. So
now, do you do summer concerts? Like, do they call, like, do you get a call, say, outside Mozart, or I don't know, whatever classical music that's played, like I mean, like Tanglewood and that kind of thing, like, do you
yeah,
get
sure.
to-
Yeah, I mean, say Music Academy isn't quite at the size or the scope of Tanglewood, but it's a similar sort of like festival of music. So I end up playing a lot during the summers in Santa Barbara, and then usually I take like 1 or 2 trips because I'm there the whole summer, all 8 weeks. But like next summer, I'm coming to New York for a week-long festival in Lincoln Center. And then the summer after, there are a couple things up at Caramore, and a couple other random things. But mostly, I stay put in Santa Barbara. It's an easy place to stay put in the summer, to be totally.
Yes, I will agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So, all right, so what are you listening to these days? Like, when you are listening for your own pleasure, are you listening to Kendrick Lamar? Are you listening to Beyonce? Like, who are you listening to?
God, I am like, I don't know any popular music. It is like my great shame, because my wife is very savvy with like all things celebrity, popular culture, and she's always playing music. I'm like, man, this is good. Who's that? And she's like, this is Beyonce. It's like, oh, got it. Okay, who is that? Oh, this is Taylor Swift's new album. Taylor, who? Yeah, it's bad, and I am not proud of it. But yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of like electronic music, and yeah, some jazz, some classical things, a lot of things that like composers send me of like, hey, I heard this is super cool. Yeah, trying to keep tabs on friends' projects and things like that. But yeah, it's tough. Like, being leisurely in one's own field is sometimes a challenge.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how about you, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's partly because I'm a pretty like attentive listener, and it's sort of like reading. Like, I can't sort of background read or like put a book on tape and just kind of like do housework and have that going. Like, I don't know. I'm a very intentional reader and listener. And if I'm going to listen to something, I really like will sit down and just like put on a good pair of headphones. And maybe it's just that time is limited and precious. And Yeah, I need to carve out more of it though, because there's such amazing art being made.
Now, so you have a 5-year-old. Has he started lessons, or are you going to go a different route than what was given to you?
I'm gonna take his lead. I think that was, my folks are not musical and had no, there was no playbook, for me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they got advice from friends, and they kind of had a little bit of guidance. But I think one of the wisest things they did was let me kind of show them how serious I wanted to be. I mean, they never like got on my case about practicing or anything. I just sort of like found myself practicing, and it was something I really enjoyed doing. And I think when I my playing wasn't, yeah, it didn't have that association of work, but it just had the association of pleasure and exploration and
So when
curiosity.
you said I'm going to be a musician for a living, did
Yeah,
they go okay, or did they go, are you sure?
yeah, again, little column A, little column B. I mean, mostly totally supportive. They're both artists in their own way, and
Okay, okay.
their professional lives took different directions when they had kids, as
As that will
what happens.
happen.
But yeah, my mom was very involved with dance and choreography when she was in school. My dad was a very deep reader and writer, and like thought that that was going to be his life, a life in kind of arts and letters, and did it with my mom. And then, 3 kids later, they're like, "Oh God, I need to." My dad was in real estate, and my mom kind of had multiple jobs, but ended up being the director of the foundation at the University of Iowa. And so her literal job was raising money for the arts. And so, they were very sympathetic for me, but both of my brothers are artists too. My older brother's a writer, and my younger brother's a bassist. So, um, they're super supportive, and I think they allowed us, all three of us, to kind of arrive at
Uh-huh.
our professional lives in the way that made sense to us, and let us kind of explore it on our own terms.
That
Which,
sounds very gentle, which is nice.
yeah, I think so. And yeah, I mean, back to your original question, I mean, our son's name is Willem, and he's obviously very interested in music, and he listens to a lot of music, and he loves to sing, and he loves to kind of improvise at the piano, and always is making me take down my old violin and sawing away at the violin. So there's like a clear
Wow.
interest and curiosity about it. But and every once in a while I'll ask him, like, "Oh, do you want to take lessons? Do you want to learn how to do this a little bit more thoroughly than just like sawing at it?" And when he says yes, we'll put him in lessons and stuff. But I'm gonna take his lead for now.
Gentle parenting.
I know, right?
That's fine. Like, listen, we can use a little gentle parenting these days with these young people. So, all right. So you've got 2 dates. You're coming on the 26th and the 27th.
Yeah.
You're gonna play 2 concerts. Both the same music or different sets.
Yep. It's the same piece both nights.
Okay. And so you're gonna get a chance to talk to students because I'm sure all the music students are gonna want to talk to you
Yeah.
and
I
pick
hope
your
they show up.
brain and you know.
Yeah, I think one of them is, I believe, coming to study in Santa Barbara this summer. So hopefully I see them.
And I know you've done. I saw in your bio Julia Bullock.
Yeah,
I had her on the show last year with her
no
husband
kidding.
and the new
Oh man,
baby.
she's 40 times more interesting than I am.
Oh, oh,
After that,
she was just here. I didn't get a chance to talk to her the second time
yeah,
she was
right. She
here.
did the Baroque recital with
Yes, and then it went
yeah,
to Carnegie Hall, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wherever it went, and
Yeah, Julia is
splashed.
like a total unicorn, and yeah, just the best.
Yeah. So, and I am discovering that whole world of this. I'm discovering this very different classical vibe. I go to the symphony a lot, but I'm starting to discover that there's this other world of classical music that's really interesting and cool. And I guess do you say modern in classical music? Is there such a
Definitely.
thing to say modern?
Yeah, for
Modern
sure.
classical music. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, a lot of the projects that Julia has been involved with have been, yeah, creating something from the ground up. I mean, I think a lot of classical music is thought of as like recreating something that already exists, which obviously is a huge part of the field. But I think what makes Julia such an amazing artist, in addition to being like a remarkable singer, is that she's interested in kind of messing with all the ingredients and creating something new out of either pre-existing things or collaborating with people who are writing things completely fresh for her to realize. And yeah, that is modern and interesting and alive in a way, for me at least, that I think just recreating like a Beethoven sonata for the sake of a Beethoven sonata, as brilliant as it is, maybe is for me a slightly less exciting. But yeah,
Well, I'm so glad you're going to be in New Haven. And I'm glad that you're going to see some friends and you're going to eat some pizza and play some good music and interact with students. And I think this is probably a good time to be in New Haven. The weather seems to be cooperating.
I can't wait. Yeah,
So, well, Conor, it was a pleasure talking to you this
it was a
morning.
pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'll see you at the vegan cheese pizzeria or something.
So you have a good time. Enjoy my town.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to hearing you play.
Yeah, pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. I'll be back tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.